Hello, Bravo bosses, and welcome to the Bravo Investigator Podcast with me, your host, Dana. Today on our Monday Reality Roundup, we are talking about Summer House, Love Island, Vanderpump Rules, The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and The Real Housewives of Rhode Island. Let's get into it. Happy Monday, everyone. I hope everyone had a great week and weekend. In terms of shows, I'm trying to think of what you've missed. So we had last week's Monday. No, sorry, it was on Tuesday. On Tuesday, we did our reality roundup. It was a pretty good one. And then on Saturday, I did mini recaps of The Valley, the past two episodes, 12 and 13, and the premiere of The Real Housewives of OC. And then on Sunday, I dropped, Beyond the Villa, Love Island, because Peacock dropped the first episode. So I'm like, okay, I have time, so I'm going to recap this. So if you were on Patreon, you grabbed this on Sunday. If you were on Patreon, you actually grabbed the reality roundup on Sunday. So don't forget about the Patreon either if you're able to join. It's $5 a month, just one tier, four extra episodes a month. It's patreon.com/the Bravo Investigator Podcast. Sorry, I lost it for a minute. I'm like, wait, what is it called? And yeah, you get four extra podcast episodes a month. You get the regular episodes that are on the main feed ad free, and you get them early as well. So if you're able to join, we're having such a fun time in there, just chatting away, talking about things that we love, talking about things that we hate, talking about Bravo, reality TV, just everything. So if you can join the Patreon, $5 a month, patreon.com/the Bravo Investigator Podcast, and do it through the desktop, not through the app, because apparently if you do it through the app, there's just like all these crazy fees. So definitely don't do that. But yeah, I hope everyone had a great week. I definitely feel like I am close to being fired again. So, just the usual pretty much is going on. So I'm looking for jobs. And crying. And that's what I've been doing pretty much. It's been very hot here in Toronto, so please ignore my frizzy hair if you're watching this on YouTube. I'm just dying in the fucking heat. It's like 40 degrees. I can't even take the dogs outside. It's just so muggy and gross. And then today, being Sunday, which is when I'm actually recording, it just was like a downpour for like half an hour just because it was so hot. So yeah, just living the dream. But you know what? I am going to, because I'm such a glass half empty type of person, so I want to say something maybe a little glass half full. At least I have air conditioning. And I have it all year long too, which for me, as someone who is perpetually sweaty, I'm sweating constantly. It's great to have it all year round. I have to be quite honest. Do I use it in the winter? Hell fucking yeah, I do. So yeah, that's what's been going on with me. We've had, the premiere of The Real Housewives of OC this past week, so that's awesome. We have The Real Housewives of Miami still on, and I'll be getting you recaps of that. I just been busy with other things. Love Island ended yesterday, but because I record this on Sunday, I haven't seen the finale episode. And I know I haven't really been talking to you guys about the past week of it. I don't know, I kind of fell out of it. I kind of felt bored of it. So, we'll find out what happens here, but I'm definitely going to be talking about Love Island today in terms of news and controversy and whatnot. And what else do we have on the agenda? Well, on Tuesday, this is probably the finale of The Valley this coming week, if I'm not mistaken. And then they'll have the reunion, and I don't know how many parts of that. But yeah, that's coming to an end as well. So then we have Love Island Beyond the Villa. I think there's going to be six episodes of that. I think those are going to be dropping on Sundays weekly. So lots of fun content coming up, lots of fun stuff to talk about. Oh, and Next Gen, I think there's three more episodes, and I'm covering that right now over on the Patreon. So, patreon.com/the Bravo Investigator Podcast. If you can, no big deal if you can't. But anyways, let's get into our topics for today. So let's start with Summer House. And we have been hearing that Paige DeSorbo may actually still be dating Joe D'Amelio. So as you may recall, when Paige and Craig broke up, when was it now? Back in December of 2024, 3 weeks after they broke up, she was seen out with Joe D'Amelio on New Year's Eve. And we're like, who the fuck is Joe D'Amelio? And I still don't really know. I forget what he does now. I don't know. He works for some like sports marketing company, I think. And then a couple weeks later, we saw her with him at like a Philadelphia Eagles game, and people were just like going crazy over this. Now, Craig did bring it up in the in his reunion, like the Southern Charm reunion, and he said that he had asked Paige if she was dating anyone, and she said like, no, I'm not dating to or talking to anybody. And on her reunion, she said that she's definitely dating, but no one special. Now, I had heard, on the street that she actually was still dating Joe D'Amelio, but because of all the public backlash, they were just like on the DL, and that the plan, I don't even remember who said this, so I don't want to quote anyone, but it was definitely a big account who had like a lot of information, but the account had said like or the podcast that I was listening to, whatever it was, had said that I guess the plan was for her to just keep dating him on the down low. And then eventually she would, like maybe 6 months later, announce that she's dating Joe D'Amelio. But Dumois did talk about it on her podcast. So I'm just going to play you guys that clip super quick. Give that to you. You know, it's what I do. It's what I do. But just looking for it. Just looking for it. There we go.
Fact that Paige DeSorbo is still seeing Joe D'Amelio. Somebody spotted them in Capri last week holding hands. They sent a picture. I will publish it, but holding hands, Joe and Paige. So I guess they're still together. I guess that's what that tells us.
So I don't know. Some people are really surprised. Some people were initially like, that's not her, that's not her. So she had posted a picture of herself that day. So she's wearing a blue Chanel dress. It has like white trimming on it. And it's yeah, it has white trimming all around the side and it's navy blue. And Dumois posted this on her stories as well. And then Dumois on www.dumoisworld.com if you want to see the photos, because I don't think I posted it. I think I just posted it as a story. But there's pictures of the back of this girl and then this guy. And the back of the girl is wearing the exact same dress as Paige DeSorbo. It's like the navy blue dress with white trim, like a few inches above the knee. It's sleeveless, and her hair is like kind of mid back. It does look kind of long for her, but then when you look at the picture of herself, that the selfie that she posted that day, you'll see that her hair is that long. So it's definitely her. It's definitely him. I don't know what she sees in this guy. He's kind of, I don't know. I mean, that's the thing, right? But like, we never really know what's going on in anyone's relationships, or we really never know what who someone really is, right? Anyone can portray themselves a certain persona on TV. So there was lots of people that thought Craig was just like a sweetheart and such a dream, and like we really don't know. He could have been a fucking monster. So I mean, if she's happy, good for her. And this is probably one of the reasons she didn't want to be on the show anymore, because I think she just wants to keep her relationship life private. It's always, before Craig, it was always kind of private. And then with Craig, it was very public, but in a very curated public way. And from what we ended up seeing from the reunion, it seemed like we didn't know anything about their relationship, which is even something that Andy Cohen said, right? So I think. And I think at the end of the day, we should all be prioritizing our real life relationships over television anyway. So, if she wants to pursue this and she feels that she needs to leave TV to do so, I think in her case, it's kind of fine because she has such bigger things outside of this. She's got Giggly Squad, she's got her brands. She's so much bigger than Bravo that this is almost like a nothing to her to leave Bravo if it was just in favor of this guy because she doesn't need it? Anyway, okay, let's move on to Vanderpump Rules. So, Scheana Shay has been telling us for quite some time that she is releasing a memoir called My Good Side. And we know Sheena, she keeps like dropping hints that it's gonna have like all this really juicy information. It's gonna be super interesting. And we're like, we know Sheena. But then in Glamour magazine this past week, she released basically a very large excerpt from her memoir that involves Brock cheating on her while she was pregnant with her child Summer Moon. And it kind of just was this huge bomb dropped on the Bravo fandom. We were all like really shocked by it, quite frankly. So I'm going to read you guys the excerpt from Glamour magazine. So it says, for 11 years, Bravo's hit reality television show Vanderpump Rules, Scheana Shay shared nearly every detail of her life. We saw her in times of great joy, like the birth of her daughter in 2021, but also in times of great pain. From day one, she spoke candidly about her relationship with a married man, finding what she thought was true love, but ended in divorce, navigating the end of meaningful friendships, and more. But she held back from the public one of the toughest things she's ever gone through until now. As Shay reveals in the upcoming memoir, My Good Side, an excerpt of which she's sharing exclusively with Glamour, her husband Brock Davies had an affair when she was pregnant with their daughter in 2020. He kept the relationship a secret until after they were married, revealing it to her when the affair of her co-stars Tom Sandoval and Rachel Raquel Leviss, known as Scandoval, became national news in March 2023. In her memoir, Shay explains that learning of the Scandoval affair had been uniquely traumatic. She was close friends with all three and resulted in a heated argument that ended with Leviss filing a restraining order against Shay. Shay denied the allegations of physical assault and was vindicated when the order was dismissed. But the emotional damage was done. Afterwards, Shay had hoped to move on from the drama and regroup with her husband and daughter and begin to heal. But as she writes, her pain had only just begun. Below, she shares what happened next in an excerpt from her upcoming memoir, My Good Side. Okay, so it says, in the throes of Scandoval and its aftermath, my own world shattered. Since Raquel had doxed my address where she filed the restraining order, my only safe place no longer felt secure. Every day I was gritting my teeth and trying to power through this mess, not really knowing what my life would look like on the other side of it. By the end of March, once we'd filmed the reunion and the restraining order had been dismissed, I assumed my life would settle down. Silly me. The story of the scandal was far from done, and it became clear that the media was going to have a field day with it for quite some time to come. Each morning I would wake up to a new headline or viral video while attempting to parent an almost 2-year-old who had no idea what was going on. I knew I had to stay strong for her, but it was one of the most stressful and uncertain periods of my entire life. When That's One Blind Items about Brock and Raquel having an affair surfaced. Prior to Tom and Raquel's indiscretions, Brock had been supportive of Raquel when she split from James. Even though I knew in my heart that the gossip concerning Brock and Raquel was ridiculously fake, we had to deal with it anyway. But there was the smallest section of my brain that kept thinking, if Tom and Raquel pulled the wool over everyone's eyes for 7 months, could Brock and Raquel have done the same thing? When such a monumental lie is exposed so close to you, it brings a lot into question. That wasn't the only blind item about Brock and another woman to emerge during this time. There was also one about him dating a woman in San Diego around the same time that we met, which claimed that Brock would spend Saturdays with her before coming up to see me on Sundays for Chargers games. It also alleged that she had helped him pack for the Australia trip when we made our relationship official, prompting her to cut ties with him. I certainly didn't trust Raquel as far as I could throw her, so when Brock dismissed the accusations and denied that some woman helped him pack, I believed him. Miraculously by Easter, between filming seasons 10 and 11, media attention and fan speculation had died down a little, and paparazzi were no longer camped outside my house. We had an amazing day with my family, and that night Brock and I sat down to watch the latest episodes of The Real Housewives of New Jersey. It was a typical evening at home for us, and finally my nervous system wasn't firing on all cylinders. I guess I should have known better than to relax in my state of calmness. Right before I pressed play, Brock told me to put down the remote because he needed to talk to me about something important. I thought he was joking at first, but then I noticed his face was serious and my heart began beating against my chest. What else could possibly go wrong? Brock said that with all the fake news being published, he was afraid that something might be true that might surface, and it was best that I hear it directly from him. My whole body froze and I remained in a state of paralyzed shock as he confessed that he cheated on me 2 years prior when we were living in San Diego during the pandemic while I was pregnant with Summer. I had spent so much time fighting off my anxiety and convincing myself that just because Tom cheated on Ariana didn't mean that Brock would ever cheat on me. Now I was finding out just how wrong I was. As I sat there feeling completely sick to my stomach, he admitted that at the time he was scared about being a father again, specifically about whether he even deserved to be, and he chose to deal with it by sleeping with somebody else. I use the word chose because it was very much a conscious decision. No one twisted his arm or dragged him into bed. Just when I thought my world had been rocked beyond anything I could have imagined, it was officially shattered into pieces. Pieces I wasn't sure I could put back together. I didn't want to believe what he was telling me, and oddly, I didn't know how to react either. I was so angry, so sad, and so hurt. Those were givens. This was my deep fury bubbling up inside me, and I couldn't release it. If I screamed, I could wake up my daughter. Our daughter. His baby whom I'd been carrying while he was in bed with another woman. I stood up and started pacing back and forth, fuming and feeling like I might throw up. Then, unable to control my rage, I slapped him and threw a Rubik's Cube in his direction, which he dodged. To this day, every time I see a Rubik's Cube, it triggers me, pulling me right back to this incredibly dark moment in my life. Same goes for any mention of an F-45 gym. Brock didn't know what to say. What could he possibly say? He'd done what he'd done, and it wasn't going away or be swept under the rug. Still, I wanted details. I had to know who the woman was and why he so blatantly betrayed me, particularly during such a vulnerable period of my life. He said that the woman was someone he had known before we had met. One day, while I was at home pregnant with his child, Brock went to work at his gym, F-45 Training, East Hillcrest in San Diego. We all need the address. And he ran into her outside. After reconnecting, he said that they began a brief affair. I was a little confused because I'd always had his location, because everyone would ask about the location, and could have checked it at any time. How could I not have caught them? But he also had a second phone for work, which I did know about but didn't monitor. All right, well, that explains that. It turned out that that was their sole form of communication. Nice, right? The same night, Brock gave me a letter that he'd written a year after the affair ended. Why then, I wondered. Apparently, he had compartmentalized his indiscretion. Convenient, I know. But while we were at our local festival in San Diego one night, he ran into some old friends who reminded him of that time in his life, and everything he'd done came rushing back. He said he realized he was throwing away his second chance at a family by stepping out and swore to himself that he would never betray me again. That night after the festival, he wrote the letter, which included more specifics than I ever wanted, such as how many times they slept together, where they'd done it, and where they hadn't, our house. He also pointed out that it was purely physical, never emotional, and he always used protection. Gee, thanks. He definitely wasn't sober when he put pen to paper, so the spelling errors were rampant. I can't explain why, but that really irritated me. Maybe because it felt like another sign of his carelessness. The letter made me remember the weeks leading up to my second trimester when, like many pregnant women, I was sexually stimulated. I'll never forget how, during that time, Brock was afraid to have sex with me or he simply didn't want to. That did a number on my anxiety and it killed my confidence in a way I can't even describe. His behavior now made so much more sense. Once I'd read it, sorry, I scrolled past. Once I read it, that was more than enough. I told him to immediately toss it into the fire and never wanted to set eyes on those words again. Okay, that was a lot. I have like so many thoughts. Okay. Oh my gosh. All right, well, Sheena, we're definitely intrigued. I'm definitely buying the book. That's first of all. I need to have some water. Hang on. Sorry. I'm like, that was a lot. Okay. So the first thing I guess I want to talk about is the timeline. So they met in 2019. She got pregnant with Summer in 2020, and then he cheats on her at the end of 2020. So they had the affair, they had the miscarriage earlier in 2020. So they meet in 2019. She has the miscarriage, I believe, in April 2020. Then she gets pregnant with Summer Moon late 2020, which is when he starts having the affair. And then Summer, I believe, is born in April 2021, if I'm not mistaken. So, oh my God. And then they get married for real, I believe, in that same year in 2021 when Summer is born, because we see them get married on camera in August 2022. But remember, Sheena's like, we've already been legally married for a year. So that means they got married in August 2021. So, I mean, they had barely known each other when she had gotten pregnant the first time. Sorry, I feel like there's something wrong with my camera here. I'm adjusting. I'm adjusting, you guys, while we're chatting. Is that better? Is this better? All right. All right. We're talking, we're chatting. Yes. Now we're at eye level. I feel like I'm more talking to you. Okay. We've readjusted. So I believe, they had barely even known each other when she had gotten pregnant the first time. Probably even like a year and a half by the time she got pregnant the second time. No, probably not even a year. And that doesn't defend it whatsoever, but I'm just talking timeline. And then Brock gets his visa right after they get married. So they get officially married in like August 2021. And he gets sorry, not his visa, my apologies. He gets his green card shortly thereafter. So he's on an investor's visa, but one of the reasons that he was able to get his green card is because he married an American citizen. So there's just so many things about it that's gross, right? Like the green card factor, the fact that you didn't tell her until after she had your child, the fact that you did this like while she was pregnant, after she had had a miscarriage and she struggled so hard because of that, you know? So aside from all of that, there are so many additional factors to consider that are sort of floating around the internet slash floating around my brain. So I'm sorry that I'm sort of like disorganized today, and it's no intention, I promise you. It's just because I literally have so many thoughts. And like even though this came out what like on maybe Thursday, maybe Wednesday, I have been processing ever since. I'm like literally still processing. Okay. So the factor of whether it's true. Now, I hate that we even have to discuss that, but people are saying that online. People are saying, I don't believe this. I think this is something that her and Brock just came up with in order to sell books because it's a good story. I don't know. The woman in me believes that another woman just wouldn't lie about something like that. I mean, I just don't like to believe that people lie about anything, but that's just the naivete in me, I guess. But that just feels like such an icky thing to lie about. So I don't know how I feel about that, but I'm just putting it out there into like our zeitgeist because these are all the thoughts that are sort of coming forward as this story has come to our attention. So there's the whole factor of whether she's doing this to sell books. Now, she could be lying about it to sell books, but the fact that she's even bringing it forward to sell books, because, you're like outing your current husband, right? Like, this isn't like someone you no longer speak to and you're talking about like a previous affair. You're talking about your current husband. So it's like, there's the ick factor of like utilizing this story in order to make money. Now, she doesn't have a lot of sources of revenue right now. And Brock has never really been one to like, shade away from embarrassment if it means like making more money, right? And again, I'm sure they had this conversation. I'm sure like her putting this in the book isn't news to him, but there's just like that ick factor as well. And then there's the whole bringing it up on the season slash lack thereof. And that's what I feel like the majority of the audience is focusing on. The fact that she didn't bring this up on the season. She found this out from Brock in like April 2023. So right after Scandal. Scandal was March 2023. Brock tells Sheena in April 2023, and then they start filming for Vanderpump Rules season 11 in like July 2023. So during this time, Sheena brings forward this nanny storyline that she has with Brock, where she doesn't want to leave Summer Moon because she has postpartum OCD and she only wants to leave Summer Moon with her mom. And this annoys Brock because he wants to spend time with his wife, and his wife doesn't want to leave Summer with anyone else. And that's like their storyline. So it's not like they didn't have a storyline. So there is that, but there's the consideration as to whether the storyline was even real now, because it's like, it would be insane if she didn't bring this affair to camera and then also not bring any other storyline to camera, right? People will be tearing her a new one if she didn't have anything in season 11, but that wasn't the case, right? She had the nanny storyline and she had her, friendship love affair situation with Tom Sandoval. Do I, don't I become friends with him again? Sorry, I need more water. Um, So it's not like she didn't have anything to talk about. Um, I just don't know how true this nanny storyline was. And if you go back and rewatch season 11, which of course is what I've been doing for the last few days, you see a lot of Sheena maybe acting in ways that don't really make sense. A lot of fights that she gets in with Brock over very small and trivial things. Is it really about the affair, um, or is it about, this situation with Brock, right? Because like she's saying that she's like packed it away and then just decided to move on with it in this book, but it's like, how could you have, right? Like it's such a short amount of time. So then everyone is mostly upset about the fact that Sheena and Lala spent the majority of season 11 being upset with Ariana for like not telling the truth and not being more forward and open with her life and not talking to Tom Sandoval. And now everybody is saying, well, Sheena, then you're a hypocrite because you didn't bring this very big storyline to camera and you didn't tell your truth, right? But I'm sort of thinking like, okay, maybe she thought, I want to let Ariana have this moment. Because can you imagine Sheena bringing this affair to camera and saying, what about me? What about my affair during Scandal, which was quote unquote Ariana's time, right? And I'm not defending Sheena. I'm just, I'm playing devil's advocate and I know the devil doesn't need any more advocates. I'm just looking at all avenues here, okay? So there is that consideration. Or there's the consideration that if she had brought this to camera, they could have commiserated together on this. Then I also wonder if Lala knew about this because, it was Sheena and Lala who were so upset with Ariana. But then again, like, if they both were aware, obviously Sheena was aware of the affair, and if Lala had been aware, then it's the hypocrisy, right? Like, how dare they have pushed Ariana so hard knowing that Sheena was keeping this secret? I don't think Lala knew. Brittany came out on her podcast When Reality Hits just the other day on Friday saying that she only found out about it a month ago. I mean, look at all the secrets that Sheena was able to keep. The secret of her kissing Schwartz, like 12 years ago, she didn't even tell her mom about that. I bet you she didn't tell anyone about this, not even her mom. And I know you guys think she tells her mom and sister everything. I think it's possible she didn't tell anyone because I want to say I know for a fact. I know for a fact that there's things she didn't even tell her mom and her sister because she said she didn't even tell her mom about Schwartz kissing her 12 years ago in Vegas. So it's not that crazy that she has really held this in, which could explain why she was, yeah, just so like crying all the time and acting so berserk on season 11 of Vanderpump Rules. Now, there could also be the consideration that she felt like, okay, we dealt with this prior, so bringing it to camera would just be like reopening a wound that I don't want to open, which is totally fair, right? Like, if you feel like you have dealt with this, and like that's a whole other consideration whether she has or hasn't. But if you feel like you've dealt with this pre-July and there's no reason to bring it up on camera, because if you did, then it would be opening old wounds. It would be you dealing with it all over again, basically for a year, because you're filming and then you're filming confessionals and then you're filming the reunion and you're doing podcasts and all that stuff. So, like, something you dealt with a year ago would then be dragged out for a whole other year when it's about your relationship and your marriage and something so important. I can so understand that. That completely makes sense. So, that's something to consider. But then again, Lala was so upset at Katie for not bringing to camera that issue that she had with Ariana about allegedly Ariana not paying her rent for something about her. And Katie saying, well, Ariana and I have dealt with that. It's no longer an issue. So it didn't make sense to bring it up on camera. That would sort of be the same sort of hypocrisy because, if Katie's saying, well, I don't want to bring something to camera because it had been dealt with prior, Sheena's thinking could have been the same, right? Like, I don't want to bring it to camera because it's been dealt with prior. And then Lala would, sort of should understand that narrative because that's the same thing that Katie had said. So I don't know. There's just so much to think about here now. Some people are also considering the fact of this being like karma because of Brandy, because apparently, and I didn't know this, apparently Brandy was pregnant when Sheena was having her affair with Eddie Cibrian, which is how Vanderpump Rules even started to begin with, right? So I just don't want to look at things like that. I think it's sad that she's been cheated on at all. Like, listen, I have my issues with Sheena, which are outside of this, but like, I think it's sad that this happened. And I don't wish it upon anybody, and I really don't think that it's like a karma for what happened with that. I truly do believe, am I crazy to say that I truly believe that she didn't know that Eddie was married? I don't know. She's not the smartest girl. I think we give these people a lot more credit than maybe we should. But Ali Luber is apparently dating someone new. This came out in People last week, saying that Ali Luber has a new boyfriend who she's been dating for several months, a source tells People. The pair reportedly met through mutual friends and have been getting more serious recently. This comes 6 months after Luber broke up with ex James Kennedy following his arrest on suspicion of domestic violence in December 2024. So that's great for her. I have absolutely no idea who it is. I'm not going to look into it. I'm not really that into her as a person. Like, as a woman, I support her, and if she's ever been through anything, that's why I was like fighting for her life when, all of these allegations were coming out and stuff like that. But, I'm not really a person that's into astrology. I wasn't that interested in her on the show. So I wish her all the best. And I hope she is happy, right? I mean, I'm still really confused by that police report. But it is what it is, and I'm just glad that she's happy now and that she's in a safe and healthy situation. That's all that really matters, and good for her. All right, well, let's move on to Love Island. And this is a little bit dated now, but we did get Sierra Ortega from Love Island has come out with an apology because, as we know, she had these racist remarks that she had made on her Instagram in reference to the Asian community. And basically, for several weeks of Love Island, the fandom was saying, like, get Sierra Ortega off the show, get Sierra Ortega off the show. And production on the back end was sort of freaking out, being like, what do we do about this? Because she had moved so far on the show. She's been an OG. And as I told you guys last week, she was eventually kicked off. But, now that she's come back to the real world, she made a statement and she did a video on Instagram as well. But I will read you the statement. It says, I do not and have never condoned racism or repression of any cultural group in any form. I would never intentionally use any word, especially a slur, to tear down anyone's culture or community. While I used that word, I didn't fully understand what it meant or how much pain it carried. I learned how deeply wrong it was when it was called out for it in 2024, and as you can see in the screenshots that I shared in my video, I was genuinely ashamed and wanted to do whatever I could in that moment to make sure I never made that careless mistake again. I know an apology means nothing without real accountability and change, and that's what I've done my best to live up to since then and what I will continue to do. While I have no ill intention, I fully understand that impact matters more than intent. I don't expect forgiveness overnight. I just hope that in time I can show that I'm more than just a mistake, a label, or a character, or on a highly edited reality show. I'm someone trying to spread love and light. Ugh, I hate that she's saying that even when I get it wrong, and I hope my actions from here speak louder than this mistake ever did. My experience in the villa was nothing short of magical. The memories I made and the people I met are ones I cherish forever. While I'm heartbroken my journey had to be cut short, I understand that mistakes, especially ones like this, deserve consequences. Once again, to the Asian community, I am deeply sorry for my thoughtless mistakes and the harm it caused. With love and humility, C. So this isn't my apology to accept, but of course, she made one. And I don't know what this will mean for her going forward. I mean, if you look at her Instagram prior to this, she looked like a pretty successful influencer. I mean, she started coming up on like my Instagram ads for Skims, meaning she was already like partnered with them as like a full-on, Instagram influencer. So, racism doesn't sell, and this could be really bad for her brand for the rest of her business. I hear that Islanders end up getting like $1 million brand deals at the end of these things. I mean, our final four couples, they're literally projected to be making $1 million each in brand deals outside of this when they come out. So, I mean, even Amaya has Fenty Beauty leaving her messages being like, girl, check your DMs when you're out of the villa, right? Like, it's wild. So, but something like this, a controversy like this, can absolutely ruin you. So only time will tell. But she also made a comment about Nicolandria because, we've all been curious what she thinks about it. So she made a comment on Instagram and said, before the hood rats, which is hilarious that that's what hood is people are called, before the hood rats come for me for not tagging my girl, her IG isn't allowing tags. Please note that at Hurrdat is my sister and I love and the love I have for her is infinite. And for the Nicolandria Nation, they are two people I deeply care for and adore. I've always wanted nothing but happiness for each of them in this experience. That has and never will change. So, I guess she doesn't show that she was that hard up about him. But who knows, really? This is just like an Instagram caption. She just like, wishing them all the best. I just feel like it's so weird. And maybe it's just me because I'm not a person who can sleep with someone without emotion. So I just find it so odd that they've slept with someone, like even Huda and Jeremiah, like they slept together in the villa and then they're like never gonna speak again. Like just for me, the concept of that would be so odd to like have sex with someone with like emotion and then never see them again. I don't know. It's just weird. So I just always feel like, once the Islanders have slept with each other, that they probably have developed like more deeper emotions and that it would just be like harder to get over and just be like, oh yeah, now my friend is with him. That to me, that just seems like a harder concept, or it would be a harder concept, but who knows what's going on in Sierra's mind for real. This is just Instagram. But in terms of what Love Island is going to do, apparently they're going to try to do some more better background checks on social media. I don't really know how they're going to do it, but these racism controversies have been kind of rampant in season 7. And we've heard from Love Island USA that they are going to hire more people to dig into people's past and things they did in public. Is that an actual quote? We are going to hire more people to dig into people's past and things they did in public. All right, well, great. I mean, I'm not a person who knows how to do that, but I can imagine that it's pretty difficult, right? Like, is it crazy of me to say, tell me, is it crazy of me to say that there isn't really that many people on Earth who have a completely clean record of anything that they've ever done on the internet that's ever bad? I don't know, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I am so thankful. I mean, these girls, these things that they did were within the last couple of years, right? So it should be easy enough to find. But like, I think back to like Max Boyens and these tweets from like when he was 17 years old, because they were 10 years old at the time. He was 27 on the show. And so those tweets were 10 years old. Not that they would be difficult to find, but I'm just so thankful that Twitter and the internet didn't really exist when I was in high school when I was saying stupid shit. But that's not what we're really talking about here. These people are in their 20s. They should know better. And I think that's the point. I think that's sort of the progression that we've learned from 2020. We're sort of not punishing everyone for anything they've ever done. We're punishing people who are continuing to make the mistakes that we should have learned from in 2020. Ooh, that was insightful, don't you think? I'm kind of proud of myself. Can I pat myself on the shoulder for that? I'm going to do that. So, anyways, I'm just very curious how they're going to be doing these sweeps. Um, because apparently that Sierra post where she made that racist comment about Asians, wasn't that an Instagram story? So doesn't that mean that somebody would have had to have saved it and then at some point released it when she became famous? Like, how did that even happen? But I guess the point is, don't be racist. That's the point. That's the point. All right. Let's move on to our next topic, which is the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And Erika Jayne apparently has a new boyfriend. So good for her. Apparently, she's dating a guy who goes by Shrek, though. So that's an odd thing to consider yourself because when you think of a Shrek, you think of a big, disgusting monster. But okay, he's also Heidi Montag's bodyguard, so I guess that's sort of weird and interesting. But this is what a recent post about him says from the Real Housewives Zone on Instagram. Erika Jayne has been spotted holding hands with a famous retired U.S. Army Special Operations Sergeant Major named John McPhee. The U.S. Sun has exclusively obtained photos of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills star Erika getting very close to the Iraq and Afghanistan war veteran who is also called Shrek while running errands in Los Angeles on July 7th. John, who is also known as the Sheriff of Baghdad, why does he have so many names? Wore a Slaughter Things shirt, cargo shorts, and Crocs. Erika looked comfortable and at ease. Okay, whatever. John, a former member of the U.S. Army's Elite Delta Force, recently admitted to being divorced several times in the past. He told Megyn Kelly in a May 2025 interview, I started out married at 9/11. I've been divorced several times. It's a hard life. I think it's a hard life because nobody understands your level of commitment. And I say that in a way that you're choosing something that might cause your death over and over. People don't see that as rational. Okay, I don't know. But what he sounds like very blunt and like to the point and just very direct. And that's her, right? That's Erika Jayne. So I feel like she would do well with somebody where she's like meeting her match. So that's great. Good for her. I know a lot of people are still in the hate mode with her. I've kind of started to come around to her again. I really liked her last season. I liked her mediator role. And you know what? If she started dating someone and that's going to be on the season, great. Because, she did very unfairly come at Garcelle for not really having a storyline when what was her storyline last season, right? Like just redecorating her house. I mean, like I said, I did like her as a mediator, but she didn't really have a storyline. So if she's dating someone now, great. I would love to see it. So now we've also heard about two additional people who are going to appear as friends of on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, as reported by Bravo and Cocktail. So we have a friend of Kyle's named Amanda Francis who had purchased Kyle's home. And then we also have someone named Christine Blackman who is also a friend of Kyle's. So I think this is a good thing. Like, Kyle, hater or not, Kyle is here to stay. She's a staple of the show. So it makes sense for her to have allies. And last season, she was on a ship all by herself. So it was awkward to watch. And while she completely deserved it and she really had a bad season, it still is going to be awkward going forward if she doesn't have any alliances. And so who knows what's going to happen with her and Dorit? They barely made up by the end of last season, and I don't think they're real friends in all of this off-camera time. So if we're going into next season, if any cast changes need to happen, it's real friendships. So Kyle needs to just have people that she can talk to, people that she can rely on so that she doesn't run off, quote unquote set and leave the show for a couple of weeks because she needs to have people that she can talk to and trust. Otherwise, she's just gonna kind of falter. And again, as much as you may like her or not like her, it doesn't really matter. We want all of our castmates to be able to get through the season successfully. And Dorit has her castmate best friend in Bose, and Kyle deserves to have a best friend and supporter as well, right? We need our best friends to fight for the death for us. We need our Danielle Oliveras, right? We all need someone who's ready to fight all our battles to the death. So I'm excited for those casting changes. I think that sounds great. Excited for any storylines that might be coming up with regards to Erika and her man. So I'm excited to see what is to come for the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. All right, and our last topic of the day is the Real Housewives of Rhode Island. So, as you guys know, this is an anticipated Bravo show that we've heard coming up. And there has been talks that Ashley Iaconetti has been seen filming for this show. So this is such an amazing crossover. If you do not know Ashley I, let me tell you the lore, okay? So Ashley I was originally on The Bachelor. She was on Chris Soules' season, and she was known as like the virgin crier, being that she was a virgin and that she cried all the fucking time. And I remember her being let go on a two-on-one date, sort of in the middle of nowhere, while Chris Soules got to like fly off into the sky while she's left with her mortal enemy, literally what looked like in the middle of like an avalanche or a ditch or something like that. It was so crazy. So then she ends up on Bachelor in Paradise, and she ends up on the show a couple of times, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, forgive me here for my chronology because I may not remember all the exact steps, but I'm giving you the context, I'm giving you the gist, okay? I'm giving you enough to help you get into the Real Housewives of Rhode Island when we get there. I'll give you more when we get there, okay? We'll do a whole separate episode just on the lore of Ashley Iaconetti, all right? So she goes to Bachelor in Paradise and she falls in love with Jared Habon, who is from Caitlin Bristow's season. Really nice guy, really quiet. A lot of people thought he was handsome, really not for me. But she had seen him on Caitlyn's season and she was like gung ho, ready to go. Now, Ashley was also allowed to have her sister come on to Bachelor in Paradise, who was not on the Bachelor franchise whatsoever. I don't know why this was allowed, but it was. So Ashley, kept shooting her shot and shooting her shot, and Jared was just not interested. And then when the show ended, they continued to be friends, but it was this very weird dynamic where Ashley was like in love with him, and he would breadcrumb her a little bit. I'll fully say that. I'll give her that. But at the end of the day, he would say to her like, we're just friends. I just don't want that. And I think it was because, she was very emotional, she cried a lot, and he just didn't think at the end of the day she was his person. But she didn't believe that. That was just like not her mentality, and she never really gave up. So they just had this really weird situationship. And I say that loosely because they weren't having sex, but there were little things here and there. I think they've kissed here and there. There were little things. And they had that go on for like quite some more time. Then I think they both appear on another season of Bachelor in Paradise, and Jared ends up with Kayla Quinn, who's now married to somebody else, not from Bachelor Nation. And Ashley loses her mind and she's like, Kayla, we were friends. You promised me you would never date him. And I remember Kayla being like, but then I talked to him, Ashley, and he was lovely, right? So Ashley ends up being like voted off the show because if you're not partnered, like it's sort of like Love Island in ways where if you're not in a partnership at the end of their rose ceremonies, you get let go. And I don't remember how this ended up happening. It was probably just production based because obviously she was the drama. They didn't want her to leave. So she gets kicked off, but then they have this weird random vote where they're like, let's vote to see if we can have Ashley stay. So they vote to have her stay. Then she goes on a date with, oh my gosh, Wells Adams, Wells Adams, but it was just like one date. And then at the end of the date, or sorry, not the end of the date, but like, at the end of the show where they sort of decide like, okay, are we going anywhere with this? And if we're not, like, let's not go and do those private nights together. That's how they do it on Bachelor in Paradise. Like they do the sort of like, I want to call it hideaway because I forget the old school Bachelor names, but like, the one-on-one nights. And he was like, I'm just like not there with you. And then she goes, can I just have one final kiss? And he's like, okay. Sorry, I remember the weirdest parts of this. But yeah, like Jared was still like not into it. They leave the show. Jared and Kayla only end up being together for, I believe, 6 weeks total, if I'm not mistaken. And then at some point later, Ashley, no, then Then Ashley and Jared end up going on Bachelor Winter Games. Do you guys remember Bachelor Winter Games? The show concept was absolutely wild. It was sort of like the Olympics, but for Bachelor people. So they had Bachelor people from all over the world, and they had them come together in this like chalet house and do like Olympic style games and compete for love and maybe money. I don't remember, right? So Ashley ends up with Kevin Went on that show. Kevin Went from Toronto, Ontario, where I live, okay? And this is the first time that Jared has ever seen her with another guy. And he gets jealous and it's wild. And it doesn't happen till like after the fact, but Ashley and Kevin continue to date for a little bit. And then I remember that she ends up going on a trip where Kevin couldn't go, but it was a trip with Tanner and Jade, who are like, Bachelor in Paradise OGs. She goes on a trip with Tanner and Jade and Jared, and it was like a brand trip or something. And she had invited Kevin, but he couldn't go. And on that trip, Jared pulls her aside and tells her that he has feelings for her. And she's like, kind of like, what the fuck? Like, why are you doing this to me now? And they did kiss. And then I guess she had said that she ended up breaking up with Kevin later on, just sort of naturally, or for like natural reasons, being like, long distance, whatever the reasons being. And then her and Jared eventually came together. And now they're married with kids. And it's just kind of fucking wild because she was close friends, or they're both pretty close friends with Nick Viall, but when they were all on Bachelor in Paradise together, I remember her saying to Nick Viall, like, he's my person, and Nick's like, he's never going to be with you. Just like, like, listen. And she goes, shh, 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 no, you're wrong, you're wrong. And she was just one of those crazy girls. I remember she had written him like one of those, like, it was like in Friends. She had written him like a 10-page letter, front and back, about her feelings for him because she had seen one of her friends do something like that. And she had told him this whole story about how she had a friend who was in love with this guy and the guy had also been disgusted by her. But eventually he grew to love her and now they're together. And he was just like, oh my God. But honestly, I think he put up with it for so long because he was just such a kind guy and he just didn't know how to let her down. But the fact that he actually ended up falling in love with her was just wild because I think it just gives all of us crazy women hope, is what I have to say. Just keep on keeping on. Keep on persisting, and that man will eventually be yours. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I love you, BBs, and I will see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Bravo Investigator Podcast in partnership with Hurrdat Media. You can watch full-length videos on Hurrdat Entertainment's YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at The Bravo Investigator. If you enjoy the show, please leave me a 5-star review. Love you, BBs. See you next time.
A Hurrdat Media Production.